Despite being an early 2000s baby, I unfortunately never got to play Jet Set Radio. For reasons. So one thankful Steam winter sale, I acquired the game and then had to shelve it because of uni work. But eventually I got round to playing it between all the chaos I've been through, and I have some pretty strong feelings about Jet Set Radio. I love this game so much. The art style, the music, the vibes, the missions, it's just so well crafted. This game is all about having a good time and being a piece of shit, and I'm absolutely here for it. It starts off as this really cool yet simple challenge to spray paint wherever you can before the cops catch you, and then it just escalates into absolute madness as you get helicopters, tanks, tear gas, you almost get gunned down, you could get burnt, all because you wanted to put a little bit of paint on a wall. For real though, this game is so wacky and fun that even the more stressful missions can become fun later. Mostly. But first, the main plot of the game is that you are one of the GGs, a spray painting skating gang trying to tag Tokyo-to to completion. Along the way you encounter and take out rivals like the Love Shockers and Poison Jam, and one gang even steals your dog. That's messed up. Naturally, the further you get into the story, the more it progresses, but in a way I feel like chapters 2 and 3 were the main story, whilst chapter 1 was the warm-up. It's still relevant, of course, but things really start to get going the more gang members you get. After a mission, someone will come up to your window and say something like how cool you are, or that you aren't as cool as them, but if you can do the tricks they'll do, then they'll join your gang. These are not optional, by the way, so if you fail, you'll keep having to retry until you get them, which is honestly fine for the most part. Garum, Mew, Gum, and a couple of others are pretty decent, Cube included, but I'd be lying if I said one of the worst missions in the game wasn't combos and cubes. They come as a 2-pack really, so you don't have a choice. You back out a combo, you still have to replay Cube's mission even if you completed it. Cube's mission is the good and simple one. You grind some rails and do some jumps, you know, the normal stuff, and then she's recruited. Combo's mission is a race, which normally wouldn't be too bad because you do have to do some races before this anyways, but for some reason this race is so long and you are so disadvantaged. You have to race Beat, who is an all-around kind of character, you know, Mario and Sonic style. So in theory, the race shouldn't be too bad. Combo is a heavier skater, already being a lot slower than average, and with Beat already being average, you are really disadvantaged, and the controls don't help much either, but I'll touch up on that later. Now, when it comes to games where you can pick a certain type of character to play, like light or heavy, I usually pick the lighter characters. I love being fast and getting some hits in, then dashing away. That's why one of my mains in Smash is Fox. For this reason. Hi-ya! I don't normally play the heavier characters, but when I do, I can at least adjust to it. But Combo feels different. His race feels so unfair. Every possible way to slow you down is thrown in to make sure you don't get to the end, and it can get so frustrating. As the race starts, Beat can immediately speed off, and he pops through this JPEG Mario 64 style. Yahoo! Which was a little jarring at first because I thought that would be a barrier, like it is in other games, but sure, fine. Oh my god, what is this camera angle? Where the hell is Beat? How can you see? Oh, there he is. Right back. Oh, he's gone again. It's at least nice of Sega to make Beat wait for the player so that they can eventually find out where the hell they're going, I guess. Once you catch up to Beat, he stops Fortnite emoting and dashes off again, leading you to one of the worst placed staircases I've ever seen. What's the injury count here? Don't even get me started in getting up there either. It's a nightmare. But once you can successfully make it up, it's all downhill from here. Literally, not figuratively, because that would be uphill. But mess up and get behind, or simply let Beat out of your sight, and you may as well just replay the mission again. Oh, and don't even think about trying to touch Beat. Combo might be built like a fridge, but one touch of Beat will have you knocked down, or even sent flying like I was. Beat never skips arm day. I can't even begin to think of how long I spent on Combo's mission, and I never want to play it with him as a character ever again. Aside from that mission, I think you're cool, Combo. I mentioned earlier that the controls are a little sloppy, and no, that wasn't a way to cover up how I did in Combo's mission. They just really are kinda janky. When I first booted up the game, I opted for keyboard for some reason. Yeah, don't. It's all fun and games till you spray paint, because how the hell do you curve WASD? Not how you think, I'll tell you that. I've been using an Xbox One controller, but the newer one, so maybe it's a Series X, I don't know. But Xbox is usually the go-to controller for older games ported to Steam. This game was also ported to the 360 store, so mapping was effortless. The real problem though is that the controls feel a little sloppy from time to time. Skating up ramps is kinda janky, especially if you want to get to the top. Sometimes you just fling off to the side, or you end up doing a cool trick and then coming back down again. Sometimes you can't yet jump, or you hardly jump, leaving you to fall and die. Spray painting is a little bit of a pain because you have such a little window of time to actually paint that if you hit the left trigger too early or too late, the camera just jolts and you miss your chance, making it quite frustrating on certain levels, especially when you're being gunned down or lit on fire even. The camera is a problem in tighter areas as well, because you can get instantly rotated and fall off the building. The controls are mapped to the way that the camera is facing and not the player, which is why when you make that first JPEG jump at the bus station, you can kind of get disorientated and maybe even go back through the wall. You can also randomly fail jumping or overshoot by a long shot, making the game become unnecessarily frustrating at times. And I know some of these issues can be a bit more prominent with certain characters and certain missions, but I'm talking about the game as one big picture here, because no one will argue with me that this game has slightly janky controls. But my negative ramblings on that aside, don't get it confused and think that it controls really badly. It doesn't. It just has some quirks not yet ironed out. Well, I don't know if they'll ever be ironed out. Apparently it has been in future, but I've not played it at the time of recording this, and I'm avoiding anything about that game until I actually play it, so take that with a pinch of salt. I've had some unfortunate timings with vehicles too, where I will get hit or knocked onto one, and by the time my character manages to get up, it just carries me out the mission. It's frustrating if you're near the end, but now I think it's kind of funny. Not really a control issue, I just wanted to tell you. While the game takes place mostly in Tokyo, which if you haven't guessed by now is a city heavily based on Tokyo in Japan, there are some other locations like Shibuya and Grind City, which is based on New York. This was made with the intent to appeal to a Western audience by giving them some familiarity, which is also why they added in some Rob Zombie songs, which fit surprisingly well. The Grind City stages were later added into the Japanese game after they proved to be so popular, but I'm unable to find whether if the songs were carried over too. Grind City is where Chapter 2 Combo and Cube takes place. This chapter focuses on, you guessed it, Combo and Cube. Combo tells the GGs that the Golden Rhinos had invaded their turf in the Bantam Street area, covering everywhere in graffiti. Their friend Coin has gone missing, and the only remnant left is a message telling Combo and Cube to go to Grind Square, and then after, Tokyo, with mentions of the GGs and this Jet Set Radio business. Also yes, Bantam is an anagram for Batman. Right off the bat, you want to claim your turf back from these Golden Rhinos. The only street art to be used should be yours, and equipping the ones you really like kicks up your drive to beat them, which, side note, the many different graffiti styles you can unlock in this game are awesome. So, if you haven't guessed, Chapter 2 is a prequel due to it being added a bit later into the game's initial release. That may also explain why it's a somewhat short chapter, but still a really good one. If anything, I like the little bits of world building that it does, as well as giving Combo and Cube some depth. In the end, this is a game that focuses a little more on the gameplay and actual narrative than it does fleshing out the characters, and that's perfectly fine. The characters all have their own attributes and characteristics thrown in there, but having two characters that we got to know a little more about was a little bit refreshing. As for the enemies of this game, I love how insane they are in this. They will stop at almost nothing to get these kids off the street. I did mention earlier the different lengths they go through to stop you, but what I also didn't mention is the whips, jetpacks, trying to run you over, and giant fire-breathing rhinos. They somehow manage to up the ante every single time. So Chapter 3, whilst being the end of the story, really ramps things up. I said before how Chapter 1 felt like it was more of a tutorial and Chapter 2 started the story. Well, Chapter 3 is the real deal this time. The Golden Rhinos are your final boss, as you learn thereafter a special record called the Devil's Contract, which is believed to have the power to summon a demon. Yeah, the game really gets going. Over the course of the missions, the GGs have been picking up shattered pieces of this record, but unfortunately, as they were busy covering the Golden Rhino's graffiti with their own, the disc got swiped and all hell is let loose. So, doing more work than the police, the GGs head over to the Rokaku headquarters to take on Mr. Goji, and save the world. For a final mission, it isn't really that difficult to defeat Mr. 305. Oh, damn it! Look, I made a joke about him being pitbull to my friends whilst I was finishing the game, and it's just kind of engraved itself into my brain, so excuse me if I go off track. Anyways, Pitbull sits in his booth on a big spinning record while you hop to 4 different points to graffiti. Easy, right? Well, not when a giant golden fire-breathing rhino is following you. Depending on the character you play as, you can stay on the same platform and not be hit by the fire, which kind of feels like cheating, but I'd argue jumping to the different platforms was the real challenge anyways. As I mentioned before, it can be really difficult to land certain jumps to certain characters. And grinding up that one rail to defeat Mr. Worldwide. I'm also going to say this now for all the legends out there who suffer with heart problems, vertigo, blood pressure issues, anemia and stuff like that. Please be careful playing this final level because you're mostly on a spinning disc and it goes at a moderate speed until the end where it goes really, really fast. I have tachycardia myself and get dizzy really easily, so my first time playing this final level was kind of a struggle. So if you get dizzy easily, please keep this in mind. Though I'm not a medical professional, I just kind of want to give you guys a heads up on this because I kind of wish that I had one before I started to get really, really dizzy. In the end, the building's destruction is covered up by the Golden Rhinos with Goji's son now as the chairman. Tokyo is saved and Coin is... Coin's dead. It also turns out that the Devil's Contract was probably a hoax, just fabricated by Goji. The end. On a real note though, despite the intense speed the plot goes at right at the end, only to kind of deflate, actually doesn't dampen the game in any way. The story is goofy, it's interesting, it's bonkers. And that, as well as its gameplay, is what makes Jet Set Radio. One mission, you're just a kid skating around trying to get recruited, then a couple later you're getting pelted with tear gas. The music is another huge aspect of what makes this game special too. Hideki Naganuma absolutely kills it and has some brilliant tracks that still stand the test of time to this day. The licensed song utilized also end up blending really well. Even Dragula, which I honestly thought would sound out of place. Glad I was wrong on that front. For fuck's sake. With a game so artistically and distinctly unique, not just at the time but also today, it's so clear why fans are so passionate about this masterpiece. A game does not have to have the most jaw-dropping and thrilling story to be considered great. Sometimes it's the soul the game has, and the amount of fun that you can have, that really pieces it all together. When playing Jet Set Radio, I knew that had I had the chance to play it when I was a kid, I would have loved it as much back then as I do now. And that's a feeling so rare. Truly, this game is brilliant, and I hope you all see its greatness with your own playthroughs if you haven't already. It's simple, it's fun, it's got great music, and it's just overall a blast. I cannot recommend Jet Set Radio enough.